Hi everyone and welcome back to Nina's Chelsea Corner. Welcome to my channel if you're new around here, and welcome to a brand new episode of On the Bench with Nina. And if you guys don't know, this is my new guest show where each week I have a super sub and we discuss all things Chelsea, dig into Pochettino's decisions, the squad, and just everything that's been happening around the club. And of course, as you can see, I'm delighted to be joined by Elizabeth Hellenick in this episode. Ellie, thank you so much for coming on. How are you feeling?
I'm doing good. Super excited about the game tomorrow. I'm actually gutted. I can't watch it because I'll be at a wedding. So
Oh,
I know I was like, damn.
you've
But
got to have it on your phone
I
somewhere.
know, like I most likely will.
Okay.
But I'm excited to see how Chelsea play tomorrow. I think it's going to be a pretty big test for us, and especially given the run of fixtures that we have. So I'm keen to see kind of how we do against this really informed Arsenal side.
Yeah, no, you're so right on that. It's going to be a big game, and I'm glad that we're going into it with big expectations because despite not being in the best form, didn't do well against Arsenal last season. I feel like we still need to go in with the mentality that we can at least try and challenge them. And someone made a good point that we almost feel like we don't have a chance, and actually, that's the mentality we're trying to stray away from and actually still turn up. Because at the end of the day, it's a London derby. It's one of those games that we look forward to every single year. So you're right. It's at home. Would you say that the fact that it's at home and we're playing them at home first is an advantage for us?
I think the fact that it's at home, but also Chelsea like being the underdogs. I feel like we almost thrive in this situation where people write us off ahead of the game. And so I think Chelsea will be looking at this game knowing that, Arsenal are in good form, but you can't count us out yet. And I do think that our our score lines haven't necessarily been super reflective
Yeah.
of the performances that Chelsea have been putting in, because I actually do think that Chelsea have been playing well. Chelsea have been creating a lot of chances, but we haven't been putting those chances away, and we have been conceding goals due to individual errors. So if you can kind of eradicate those individual errors and start the goals coming, which we've been seeing over the past two games, then I do think that Chelsea will look at this and say, hey, we might be the underdogs, but we still have just as much of a chance. And hopefully, the crowd at Stamford Bridge, just to go back to your question, is going to be absolutely roaring as well and
Yeah.
on the team.
No, you're so right. It always helps when the fans turn up as well. Like sometimes we can be at fault for being too quiet, especially last season when we've been conceding. I mean, last season was a whole different thing, Ellie. Going to the bridge was just exhausting. It almost felt like it was the same thing. And that's actually what we're trying to change. So, yeah, I think if we back the boys, get behind the manager, get behind the players, create that atmosphere, and almost, yeah, make Arsenal feel a little bit hostage at Stamford Bridge, that would be nice. But yeah, you're so right. I think the fans are going to turn up. It's been international break as well, and I find that international break always feels so long, especially after you've won. You just kind of want to get straight back in there, and yeah, not breaking up the momentum. But obviously, Pochettino has told us that Caicedo and Enzo have both returned. They've been in training, which is good news. Apparently, there's some question marks around Disasi, who's been brilliant in form, and he's been starting all our games pretty much. In terms of players that have impressed you, though, and players that you would like to continue see improving and developing, and you're thinking, this is a player that's going to be really key to our squad this season. Who would you say has really stood out for you?
Think there's a couple of players, and a lot of people are talking about Enzo and Caicedo because they're the big money signing. So yes, they've been impressive, but I think I'm gonna go a slightly different route. I think Cole Palmer has looked
Yeah.
phenomenal when he started for Chelsea this season. He seems to be at the heart of Chelsea's attack, and he's getting goal contributions as well. So I am really impressed with him, and he even said that his best position is as a 10, and we've been playing him on the right wing, and he's still performing to some of the
Yeah.
highest levels. So I've been super, super impressed with Cole Palmer. I think Levi Colwill as well. The fact that he's playing almost like a left back, even though we have like this weird inverted system where maybe he's playing as the left sided center back, maybe he's playing as a left back. think that he's been phenomenal as well. And I feel like Mudryk deserves some praise for his recent performances. He had a really difficult start to his Chelsea career. And I think it's just normal that somebody who comes to Chelsea for a big sum of money, he hadn't been playing when we signed him.
Yeah.
He was playing a couple of minutes here, a game here, then benched. And that's really difficult, I think, mentally for most players, but especially for young players as well. And so I feel like Poch is just the perfect manager for him because he does so well in cultivating that young talent and even like nourishing their minds and just helping them get into the right space. And he scored a cracker of a goal for Ukraine during the international break. And I think that he's just looking a lot more confident as well. And a confident Mudryk looks really, really sharp. So those are maybe the three standout for me so far. But what about you?
No, Ellie, I agree. I mean, the three players you've mentioned absolutely have impressed. And it's just great that they're the young players that we brought in who have potential, but you're seeing them develop that potential and improve. And yeah, some may say that Mudryk's development has been a slow burn and we didn't exactly see it from the start. But you say something really important at the fact that he was rusty, he was raw when he came in. And Potter and Frank Lampard both played him 15 minutes here and there this game, always chucked in into the big games where we're chasing a result, we're chasing 3 points, and you're expecting a player that raw to make a difference. It was never going to happen. But Pochettino is actually doing exactly what they needed to do, starting him, giving him a run of games, and building his confidence, letting him play with the same players in the same system. And that's actually what I really like about Pochettino is he's not been chopping and changing too much. It's not been like a crazy rotation where we're seeing a different starting 11 over the period of the last kind of month or so. It's been consistent. And even when it didn't work at the start, now we're seeing that it's actually working. And if you look at it, it's the same group of players, really, bar the few injuries here and there. It's the same group of players. And that is actually a step in the right direction, because it means that, see, when you're not chopping and changing every week, things do get better. And I guess that's when you can argue that there is a little bit of a process here that we are obviously choosing to trust. So yeah, I'm with you on that. And Colwill as well. I mean, he's just showing why Liverpool wanted him, Brighton wanted to keep him. And obviously I'm very glad that we stood our ground and made sure that Colwill came back to us during summer.
Yeah, I love the point that you make about chopping and changing, because that's something that I spoke about on my channel basically the entirety of last season. After every loss, I'm like, how do we expect these players to play well when they're playing in a different position week out of week? They're playing with different players around them. Like, you're not allowing them to build chemistry. And it's a really, really tight rope between like rotating the players, because we have a lot of fixtures, and making sure that you keep it consistent. I know that must be an absolute nightmare for picking the starting 11, and it might even be beneficial for Chelsea to be out of Europe for the season, because you don't have so many fixtures to worry about. You can just focus on the Premier League, you can focus on the cup games, and you can start building that chemistry with the team, like we were saying.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And actually, I hope that maybe in a year or two, we'll look back and we'll say that not playing in Europe might have actually been a blessing in disguise, because like you said, an overload of fixtures for a young, raw group of players is not necessarily the best thing, and you see with Tottenham as well. Tottenham aren't in Europe, they're in a really good run of form as well, and it does actually help having to just concentrate on the Premier League, get your players sort of gelled, and just practicing tactics. And I mean, I'm at fault for this as well. I turned to Pochettino and said, why the hell are you playing Colwill as a left back? But no one's complaining now, are they? Because Colwill is actually doing a lot better. He's not really been at fault for anything that he's done in that position. And if anything, we can just praise him that he's been versatile and he has lived up to the role that the manager has set him. So yeah, really, really good. And obviously looking ahead to Saturday, what would you like to see from Pochettino, or what would you say we need to do as a team to actually have a good chance against Arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. They're such a strong side, and the fact that they beat Man City, they came close to winning the title, or they had a really strong title challenge last season, and now they're feeling like they can go for that again. I think the first thing is that I mentioned it a bit earlier, but Chelsea conceded a lot of goals from individual errors. So I think like the first thing is just making sure that you don't have any silly mistakes. There's been a couple of comps of us versus Arsenal where our players have made really poor mistakes. I know that Conte was one. Unfortunately, I think Jorginho might have been another one.
That doesn't surprise me.
So we just want to make sure, first things first, like please, like no silly mistakes. If they score a brilliant goal, then there's not so much that you can do, but please, like no individual errors. I think that's number one. The second thing is just taking our chances, because we've seen Chelsea like create so many opportunities, but then just haven't been able to get the ball in the back of the net, and that has been changing over the past 2 games, but it's a very, very small sample size. I do like what I've been seeing with Chelsea in terms of the creation, but we need to make sure that our players have their goal scoring boots on. I think we will have opportunities versus Arsenal. Be interesting to see the dynamic, especially if Reece James is fit. I've seen very conflicting reports. Some are saying that he's not fit. He said that, like, he tweeted that he might be ready. I checked Chelsea's injury list that they've been putting out, and he's not on it anymore. So I don't know. Like, I'm hoping Reece James will start. And then the third thing is the midfield. I mean, you have Rice and Partey and Odegaard really in their midfield, and then you have us with Caicedo and Enzo, and Gallagher has been an unsung hero. He's been fantastic as well. So I think the midfield battle is also going to be really interesting because they're two of the best midfields in the league.
No Kai Havertz in there, Ellie.
No Kai Havertz. Honestly, like I totally forgot, and how terrible, because I put him on my thumbnail for my match preview.
I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the reception for Kai Havertz is going to be as well, because I've seen a lot of things around. Do we boo him? Do we not? I personally wouldn't boo him. I don't really boo players in general. So I don't know. It's just not a thing I do. But, you know, it would just be interesting. I think it will spice up the atmosphere. It definitely will create a little bit more kind of dramatic tension, which you do need in a London derby, 100,000,000%. But, you know, on your point for Reece James, I was actually, of course, I'm really happy that he's fit, but I don't necessarily think that he should start, though, on Saturday. One, not because I obviously don't want to see him. That's not true. But I just don't want to rush him back too quickly is my only concern. So, you know, we've seen that all our managers in the past have rushed Reece back because he's our best player. He just is that player that you want back into the squad as soon as possible because he is the one that sometimes just does make difference. And just in this case, I think because Malo Gusto has actually been doing well, obviously there is still, a significant level between the two. But I think on the most part, Malo Gusto has been delivering. He has been really trying, and he's been doing well on the most part. I think even that game where he got sent off, I thought he was one of the best players on our pitch then, and he really has stepped in. He stepped up as well for us, so I think we should reward him with that start against Arsenal. I think that is absolutely a must, and it also means that we get to rest James, and depending on how the game goes, he could be brought on. But then again, I think I want us to stray away from that sort of mistake of bringing Reece as soon as he is back, because we've, as you said, he's no longer on the injury list, but 2 days ago he was, and 2 days before that he wasn't, and it's sort of been back and forth. But yeah, no, you make great points. We're not going to discredit Arsenal's side at the minute. They are a strong team. I mean, they get to temporarily come out on top as well, I think, for the weekend if they beat us. So, I mean, they're up against Tottenham at the top of the table right now, so they've got a little bit more at stake, but we need 3 points equally to move up further. So yeah, like I said, we're not just going to go in and accept defeat before the games even happen. So it will be interesting. It will be interesting. But Ellie, I really want to get your opinion on Thiago Silva, because a lot of our fan base has been very critical of Thiago Silva recently. I've been hearing things like drop him, don't start him, Thiago Silva shouldn't be starting every game for us anymore. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because I just adore the player so much. So I might even be a little bit biased towards him because I just think like he's so fantastic. And when he came to Chelsea, I actually wasn't completely sold on the transfer. I was like, shouldn't we be getting somebody in who's younger, who's going to grow with the team?
Yeah.
And he just was one of our best players over the past couple of years. And I do feel like this season I have seen him maybe slowing down a bit, or maybe not getting to balls that normally he would have been able to read. I don't know how much that's up to him having two completely new partners as well on either side of him, and just Chelsea in general being like a super new team and a new starting 11 since we've had basically a whole crop of players leave over the summer. So for me, it's too small the sample size just yet. We're still in October and we've had a couple of international breaks, so we haven't had so many games to see. It is looking like it's not the quality that we've seen from him over the past couple of years, but it's too soon to tell for me. What about you?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And I mean, you're right in what you say. He's not going to get better. Unfortunately, he will be on a decline at some point, and that's just reality. I mean, I want him to stay at Chelsea forever, but that's not the case. We saw that he turned 39, and yes, slowly he will sort of decline. But for me, it goes beyond sort of his footballing abilities, if that makes sense. So for me, his presence just in that back line, for me, he settled Badiashile, he settled Disasi, and he settled Colwill into that back line. And I think it's so important that these young players still have Thiago Silva to look up to. And we have had that from a lot of them, haven't we? They've come out and said that, oh, you know, we look up to him and he's just this perfect man. And we're like, how, you know? And it's so nice to still have someone to idolise in the team, because one thing I was worried about is kind of stripping Chelsea of leaders as a whole and bringing in everyone at once. And we let go of, you know, Kovacic and Jorginho and these more senior players that at least had a little bit more experience up their sleeve, and obviously Azpilicueta as well. And obviously Thiago Silva is kind of that remainder of Chelsea, you know, the old Chelsea, and his senior sort of captain leadership, captain without the armband, for me is still important. He like navigates players, tells them like where to stand. You can see his passion, and I just love him on the pitch. So I understand what you're saying, but for him to sort of pass on his abilities, so one day, you know, Colwill and Disasi are Thiago Silva for us, hopefully in the next, you know, sort of 5-10 years, however long they're with us. But yeah, no, I hear you on that. I think it's a completely valid point. And guys, let us know down in the comments what your thoughts are on Thiago Silva, because we are starting to part a little bit in our fan base, I'm seeing. And considering he's our Mr. Perfect player of the season, it's just so hard to see these words about him.
I do love him, though. I do love him, and
I
totally value the leadership that he brings. And I think having, like you said, the fact that Chelsea's team is so young, I think it's like Thiago Silva, Marcus Bettinelli, and then like
Sterling?
Ben Chilwell. Who, sorry?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going age-wise.
Yeah, age-wise. I might be missing one, but Ben Chilwell was like the fourth oldest, and he's like 25 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's insane. So, like, the caliber of player that he is and the quality that he demands and just everything that he's achieved in his career definitely helps Chelsea, because you're right, we do need leaders on the pitch, especially with our captain and vice captain out injured at the same time.
Honestly.
I know.
No, you're so right on that. I mean, when do we get to have Reece and Chilwell to get not just back, let alone together? Like, when do we even see them together on the pitch? It's not going to be anytime soon, is it? But yeah, there are concerns surrounding that as well. But at the end of the day, at least it gives the positive side of it. You've got to find it is the youngsters that are stepping into those positions and getting game time, and they're having a little bit more pressure to live up to those big boots that they do have to fill. But yeah, no, for sure. And I want to throw out a big question here in terms of, obviously it's very early on in the season, but how optimistic are you feeling about Chelsea's season in general? Do you think that we're going to climb further up? Do you think that we can be pushing for sort of the European places? What are your thoughts? I know it's early, but if you sort of had to just kind of judge of how things are going right now.
Yeah, that's a really tough question, I think, especially because we're about to go into this run of fixtures that's just absolutely disgusting. I don't know who approved that Chelsea has terrible run of form.
Yeah, they hate us. I'm telling you, they hate us.
Like, it's crazy, but it's basically about a month and a half to 2 months nonstop of playing top 6 to 8 teams, really, really difficult fixtures. And so I think it'll be a bit easier to see how we play against those top sides, because we haven't faced one of the top 6. Well, we faced Liverpool, but that was opening day, so I don't really count it so much because I don't like when we play top teams on opening day. But I would say maybe like realistically, there's like each team is looking so good. Like I'm gonna pull up the Premier League table just so I have it. So Spurs are currently at the top of the table. They're looking fantastic. Arsenal as well, City as well. So I really feel like those 3 teams are going to make top 4. I would be surprised if they don't, based off of their current form. Then you have Liverpool. Aston Villa have been looking really good. Brighton look good. Now they're wobbling a bit with the European football.
Yeah, they're juggling quite a bit now, yeah.
They're juggling. West Ham are looking fantastic. Newcastle are sitting in 8th, but they're looking fantastic as well. So then you have United, who aren't looking so great, but they always seem to like get a 90th minute winner somehow.
Two.
Like, I don't understand their luck. I never will. So it's looking really difficult because every year I feel like the competition is just getting stiffer and stiffer. And the fact that Chelsea lost so many games at the beginning of the season that we probably should have won might come back to haunt us. But if we can realistically go on a good run of form, if we can take some points off of the teams in the top 6, then maybe it could be possible. I do think once we have Nkunku back, that's going to be a massive boost to our team as well. And he looked so freaking good in preseason. So I'm excited to see him firing with the squad. Maybe we'll come close, but I'm not necessarily expecting a top 4 finish, maybe within top 6 realistically. Unfortunately, I know that's maybe not what people want to hear though.
Yeah. No, that's a very fair constructor's answer, to be fair to you. And I mean, the thing is, us fans, this is everyone's so reactionary. If a team's doing well, then, you know, they're challenging for the title. Like, take Newcastle. I saw people put Newcastle was finishing second this season. I saw, you know, teams put Man United finishing second, and now it's very different. So I almost think that the Premier League right now is so competitive that I feel like a top sort of 6 is interchanging every single weekend pretty much, and I guess that's the beauty of it. But you're right, we've got to, I think, take it just sort of game by game right now. I mean, we're not looking too far ahead, we're not challenging for a title. Realistically, we're looking at Europe right now. I feel like that is the sort of the big aim there. I feel like that is a realistic kind of a target to have, and it's a good target to have. I don't want to be sitting here saying, yeah, we'll finish 9th, that would be great, because we finished 12th last season, so we're climbing up. No, like, we're trying to stray away from those standards that we set for ourselves last season. I will not be happy with a 9th place finish, but if we're, like I said, we're crawling up in the right direction and we see improvements across the season, then and then if you get into Europe, then even better. But yeah, you're right. I think we have to still, at the end of the day, like, look at it realistically, how things are going. You're right. I mean, you've got unbeaten teams, you've got teams that are doing well against the top 6 teams, and actually that is the first step tomorrow. Let's do well against the top 6 team, and then we can have those conversations if we can put out a game. Otherwise, Ellie, do you remember the last time we beat a top 6 team?
I saw this stat that was like Fulham was the first team that we beat ahead of us
in the table,
and that was like a year and a half. So, and that was like a 10th place. So it's been at least 1 year, probably around 2-ish years. I don't remember the last time we beat a top 6 side. And that's the thing, like, you need to be getting the results, at least a handful against the top 6 teams and taking points off of them to kind of start going up. And it's the positive thing is that they're all going to have European football. We're just going to have the Premier League to focus on, plus the cup games. So that could be an advantage for us as well, potentially. And like we're saying, it's very early in the season, so you never know. Like, maybe Chelsea will have be boosted because we've had like so many injuries. Maybe another team might have an injury and that really affects them. Maybe they go far in a competition and they say, okay, we're not Premier League as much. Like, you just don't know. So definitely not impossible. We're Chelsea, we can do it, but the competition is looking stiffer than ever. Like, there's so many teams that are looking fantastic this year.
Yeah, You're so right. And I guess that's a great way to round it out. I mean, Chelsea, obviously, please just make us proud. Just let us watch a good game of football, finish your chances. And yeah, I mean, as long as we put out everything on that pitch, yeah, we'll take it. It will be a positive, but I want us to see a fight and a challenge. So yeah, definitely really exciting. And Ellie, obviously, we'll catch up after the game. Hopefully it's positive, but thank you so much for hopping onto the channel. I will link your obviously your channel in the description, guys. Check out Ellie's stuff. She's amazing. I'm aspiring to be the YouTuber that she is, so check out her stuff, and obviously subscribe to my channel too if you've enjoyed this. Like and comment your predictions for Chelsea versus Arsenal. Thank you so much, guys.